Everyone, welcome back to D1 Crashout. So, this is more of a pet peeve, something which I feel like everybody should know. You should know the difference between correlation versus causation. As a very general rule, correlation is very prominent, as in it happens a lot, and it's going to most likely happen way before causation ever happens. For example, if you are going out in public and every single time you go out, you feel like you run into one of your high school friends, like that is highly correlated, right? You go out and you see your friend. So what makes this the difference between a cause and effect? You going out increases your odds of seeing anybody. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see your high school friends. What's causing you to most likely see your high school friends, at least for like college right now, is everybody comes back home during the summer to actually see their families, and it's more likely that you're going to see people from your high school if you're near your home than if you aren't, which might be telling you this is like very natural, like this is instinctive, right? This is intuitive for most people, but a lot of people can't seem to differentiate the difference between correlation and causation. And the primary reason for that is, well, you think about the correlation first because it's much easier to prove correlation, right? There's a classic example out there. It's like people noticed that ice cream sales were highly correlated to kills, right? Like people dying. And the possibility is that more people party in the summer, or that maybe killers are more active in the summer. People didn't really know, but it was just weird that ice cream sales were increased when kills increased, and you could not prove that causal relation. Like, I want you to tell me how ice cream sales going up is resulting in more people dying. Like, ice cream sales are going up because it's in summer, it's hot, and well, a lot of people associate summertime with also cooling off and getting ice cream, getting a sweet treat, and rewarding yourself, enjoying your time, all that stuff. And that is because of the school system, right? Which offers breaks during the summer. And then families follow that time to give breaks. Promotionals follow that time to give breaks because more people are available. Family wants to take off their paid leave, all that good stuff. And that's causation, right? And the thing is, it's really easy to prove cause and effect unilaterally, in which we have to. It's called an obligation study, when you one-off things or do things one at a time in order to find out how something impacts something else when there are multiple variables at play or multiple things changing. And it's not really easy to do that when things are multivariate, as in there's a lot of things changing all at once. But there are factors at play, and when a lot of things are correlated, that's when you start to wonder how they are connected. And that's when you start doing cause and effect. So it really is just two sides of the same coin. Like, you just have to develop it over time, that sense of, okay, this is a one-off correlation, or these multiple things are correlated. For example, if I don't sleep well at night, and if I'm not eating very well, and if I don't train, it's very likely that I'm not going to be doing very well in my sport, right? It doesn't guarantee that I'm not going to do well in my sport, because maybe I'm just a goat like that. But it is highly correlated that that I'm going to perform worse. Now, the reason I perform worse on any particular day is something which you can start to look into. Maybe I got injured, and that was a result of fatigue, of either me working too hard and not recovering enough, or me not recovering enough and I was just working normally. I don't really know, but I do know that you recover when you sleep. You don't just recover during the day. You actually do your repairs, when you sleep. And your immune system does some external stuff like bruising or developing calluses or giving your pain sensors, but you don't actually really start repairing until you go to bed. And that is something that you know. That is cause and effect. But it is not. And it is also highly correlated, right? You repair when you go to bed. It is two sides of the same coin. So causation is often denoted from correlation, as in you see cause and effect happen and you noticed it because correlation happened. But correlation does not mean causation, right? If ice cream sales go up, that doesn't mean people are going to start dying. And you will learn about this in Algebra 2 Trig. That is direct and indirect variation, ways that things change together. But it is shocking the amount of people who see a correlation and immediately jump to cause and effect. There are reasons to believe in cause and effect. You don't really know if it is cause and effect until you run an experiment. And that's what the scientific method is for. That's what obligation studies are for. You actually need to prove that something has a cause and has effect, and you're able to isolate a variable. That means making sure that there is nothing else going on before you can confidently say, this causes this, right? And a lot of it is common sense, because that knowledge has been in people's domains for a very long time, but some of it isn't as common sense, right? I think one of the biggest problems is a lot of people just look at a demographic of individuals. I think one of the most common ones is like men versus women or racism, for example. And then they just are like, okay, so everything is like this. Like, no, it's highly correlated. Like, for example, Asians are very likely to get type 2 diabetes and also to have vision problems and also to have heart related problems like stress due to stress. And that is an environmental factor, right? That doesn't mean that genetically that uh, Asians are more susceptible to exclusively cardiovascular issues, right? Like the main reason that Asians suffer from type 2 diabetes was dietary factors. It's the fact that, well, they eat a lot, or if they didn't eat a lot, all they ate were carbs. So they just didn't have a good nutritional base. I am currently in America, and not many of my family members have heart or diabetes related issues. The statistic of like 50% more likely did not mean that 50% of the people, now I'm just doing a statistics lecture, that 50% of my family members got diabetes, or that out of all the people I know that got diabetes in my sample size, that a close representation of all of them was actually of 50% of them developing diabetes. Like, that just didn't happen. And yes, that is the issue of probability versus statistics, where it's like you can flip, there's a 50-50 chance on a fair coin that you're going to get heads or tails, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get heads or tails on any particular turn, right? Like, you don't know if you're going to get heads or tails. It is guaranteed that you're going to get a head or a tail, but it doesn't mean that you're going to get tails every time, you're going to get heads every time, or that it's going to be 50-50 perfectly. Like, you have a certain sample space and there's certain likelihoods of events happening, but it never means it's guaranteed to happen. So yes, do be very careful of that. But in terms of that cause and effect, some of those causes are environmental, but we all denote the same effect. So yes, you could say that Asians are highly correlated with diabetes, but the cause isn't because they're Asian. The cause is the environmental factors, it's the dietary factors, right? Like, the stress comes from like things like South Korea or Japan having very high work pressure and not a lot of money, so people can't afford to eat better food, and it comes from the food that people eat. Like, the accessible food, like McDonald's, for example, is very cheap and very easy to get, and it's the food that is not good for you. Like, it is a privilege to eat healthily. So hope some of this is starting to make sense, but I'm running out of time. So as a general recap, correlation means when things move together, right? For example, my physical health, my muscle mass is highly correlated to me working out. The cause and effect would be when I work out, it hurts and strains my muscles, and I'm doing it in such a way in which they are encouraged to grow after I'm done working out. So yes, something to think about. All right, that's about it. Bye bye.